What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here, joined by Josh Davis. Welcome to the Wednesday Link Live early edition. We got stuff going on tonight with both our respective families. We have lives outside of YouTube. Our wives might disagree, but it's true. We technically do. And so we're going to jump on and hang out with you guys for the next hour. That way you have something to enjoy here on your Wednesday afternoon. Josh, how's it going?
It's going well. It is awesome. It's like you said, it's a little bit unusual being this early and doing the Wednesday Link, but to your point, we're trying to make preparations. Everybody understands training camp is next week. So,
Sure.
a little bit of a lull, a rest up period, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to be gearing up, ready to go next week. So I'm looking forward to it.
I definitely agree. It's going to be Tuesday. They're going to report. We'll have an update on the reporting. I mean, honestly, if we just want to jump into everything regarding training camp, the first big domino that's going to fall, Josh, is going to be James Bradberry, right? I mean, the expectation is James Bradberry is going to be there. The expectation is he's going to be at least, I don't know, cornerback, safety, a mixture of both. We both talked to a bunch of, Eagle defensive players. Talked to Isaiah Rodgers. I talked to Zach McPherson, Mekhi Becton. They're saying he's going to be there, but he's not there until he's there. I mean, we expect Bradberry to play, but he's kind of the first, Tuesday news story that I think we're all going to cover coming up next couple of days.
Yes, absolutely agree. And I know people are going to wonder a question, but you said Mekhi Becton. We know you mean Mekhi Gardner, but
sorry.
yes, to your point,
Yes.
it's knowing those guys are going to be there. I'm curious because it was like we talked about a number of times. Like, okay, is James Bradberry going to make it to camp? Do you find that trade partner? You talk about the Steelers with Cam Sutton, other areas around the league. It feels like it's still a scenario of okay, maybe you see if he has anything at all in safety position, but I can't imagine the Eagles. And again, this is total speculation. This is all we have right now because we're not at training camp. But I can't imagine you go into it and say, hey, yes, that is the answer. Like plan A has to be as soon as a team needs another corner, it's immediately making the call. Hey, what do you think? You want James Bradberry? Make a little trade for something there. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, that's going to be one of those very interesting to actually see him because obviously if we remember back to OTAs, we're like, oh, hey, you're going to see James Bradberry as safety. And then he got the, injury. Some people, not me, some people said that it was a fake, but it's like, all right, hey, you want to go there? That's fine. Possibly. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying that I know for sure. But it should be actually seeing him in live action. And that's what everybody's looking forward to.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting in terms of the two DB interviews I did. I specifically put a Bradberry question in there, not because I thought that either Mekhi Gardner or Zach McPherson was just going to be like, nah, they're going to trade him, but just to see what they would say whenever asked. Ignore my dogs barking in the background there at the UPS man walking up. But both of them were like, no, he's been cross-training. He's been, trying to learn how to play safety. He's extremely smart. And I thought it's very interesting that Gardner at least said Fangio cares a lot less about tackling from a safety perspective versus covering from a safety perspective. And so, maybe they think that that's going to happen. I don't know. I'm sure he'll be there. The fines are pretty ridiculous if you hold out of training camp. He's not really in a good position to hold out of training camp. But like you said, I would be shocked if there is a cornerback opening at some point in the next 4 or 5 weeks if there's not a phone call to Howie Roseman. But obviously, we will definitely see about that. I think one of the big battles that not many people talked about until you did a show on it a couple of days ago, I mentioned it on my show 2 days ago, whatever it is. It's Mekhi Becton, not Gardner, Mekhi Becton, and the right guard spot, all based on Brian Baldinger's recent report saying he's their best run blocker, maybe one of their most athletic offensive linemen in general, and he's going to make a real run at Tyler Steen's, at least I thought, guaranteed lock at right guard. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Are you of the belief that Becton has a real shot at being right guard number one and not this kind of hybrid backup who can also play tackle?
Yeah, that's the really interesting question. That's why, I saw the comment from Baldy and I was like, man, I go back and forth. And, I made a show about it to your point, and then also talked about it with Anthony DeBona, Pro Football Network. And he even said kind of similar things like, well, hey, Baldy knows things, obviously. I mean, he's connected very well, certainly with Lane Johnson, but really the offensive line masterminds. The summit was this past weekend, gathering other intel. He's very in tune with the Eagles, naturally, as most people know. But still, that's why I started thinking back. I'm like, okay, no one's perfect. It doesn't, I don't care who you are, but no one's perfect with their predictions and the speculation, the reports and all this other stuff. But I was like, it sounds familiar to what last season we were hearing of Tyler Steen or Cam Jurgens at right guard. And remember, Baldy came out saying that Lane Johnson does not want to play with Cam Jurgens. He wants a bigger guard. He wants a bigger guy next to him, all this other stuff. And so then it was like, well, hey, maybe Tyler Steen's going to get the start. Now, naturally, we all saw what happened and what took place. That was not what occurred. maybe it was okay, Tyler Steen didn't progress to someone. There's so many outs that you give that. So that's fine. I'm not saying that he was wrong, but just the end for what his actual presumption was did not occur. And so then I'm like, well, there's that piece of it. And then also Jeff Stoutland giving huge praise to Tyler Steen about, I mean, he compared him to Brandon Brooks. He didn't call him Brandon Brooks, but he compared him and saying, hey, there are some similarities on that side. So I'm like, and I can't remember who it was, so apologies. Someone in the comment section mentioned this, it was spot on with it as well. But I'm like, they said it's Jeff Stoutland. This is not like I think they said to the effect of like not a Nick Sirianni giving someone praise. Like he's going to give everyone praise. Jeff Stoutland's not going to go up there and blow smoke and say, oh, he's compared to Brandon Brooks. If he's saying that, to me, it's a lot more similar to a Vic Fangio giving praise. He's also not going to just blow smoke for no reason. So I still am leaning towards, and to his credit also, Baldy did say, as of right now, the disclaimer is that Tyler Steen probably has a leg up on the competition, knowing the Eagle system. But I don't know. I mean, percentage-wise, if I was going to put it, I would say I'm still probably slightly leaning towards Tyler Steen of like a 65% for him being the starter as of today. But it's very noteworthy, like you mentioned, Baldy saying that Becton is the best run blocker. Not even saying he's better than Tyler Steen, but the best run blocker on this team. That is massive. I mean, no pun intended for Mekhi Becton there, but like that's huge for what you want to talk about with an offensive lineman. So I guess we'll see, but that's definitely one of the battles I'm looking forward to.
I mean, saying he's better than, Landon Dickerson's a pretty good run blocker there at left guard. I mean, the guy's like a Pro Bowl. The guy's probably going to be an All-Pro this year would be my guess. He is absolutely incredible. The good news is for Philly, though, when it comes to the majority of the camp battles, and we're just getting into the first one here at right guard if you're just joining us, it's all good news because if someone loses the battle, if Becton loses the battle and Steen is the starting right guard, Becton can then fill in at either guard spot because he's been cross-training, or if you were to have some sort of catastrophic injury at the tackles, you just slide him back into his natural position, and you at least have somebody competent there. I know that this whole idea of Mekhi Becton being a former first-round draft pick, it means he's fantastic. Well, the Jets wouldn't have let him go if he was that great. I know injuries played a role in that whole thing happening, but at least having competence there, because we've seen different points throughout the past, 10 years of Eagle history, when you've had a major injury in the offensive line, there's been massive holes left. I mean, your starting five is great, someone goes down, and it's just all chaos from there. And so either way, it's going to be good news whoever starts. I think Steen does have a leg up because he was here last year. It's not that big of a leg up, though, because, one, he's only there for 1 year and he's a rookie, and two, offensive line, it's a little different than being a quarterback for 4 years or, a right guard for 4 years, right? It's obviously difficult,
for sure.
But it's a little bit easier, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out the system. And if Becton is as physical of a freak as they keep saying, we're going to find out very quickly because you're going to start getting some one-on-one reports from training camp. Him versus Jalen Carter, him versus Jordan Davis. That's who you're going against as a guard. Those are the real battles I'm pumped to see, and we're going to get those probably middle of next week, Thursday, Friday. We don't have the official schedule yet. I know they report Tuesday. My bet is they're on the field Wednesday, but nothing crazy. I think that Thursday, Friday is when things start to kind of go a little bit more interesting in terms of battles. So we'll see. We'll definitely see.
Yeah. Start to have things heat up a little bit, but I will be excited too. And who knows? But if we were to somehow make it to camp, I'm with you in the sense of just the idea of Mekhi Becton matched up against Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis, getting to see those camp battles in person, not just hearing about it, but like see those in person.
Sure.
I can only imagine. But yes, you're going to, throughout camp, through even the preseason, the joint practices, all that stuff, we'll start to get a better glimpse of, okay, hey, Tyler Steen's winning the job, or maybe not. Maybe Mekhi Becton is starting to get some more input there. So very much to keep an eye on. By the way, just a quick shout out because I've seen all the comments of people joining us. It's awesome being an early Wednesday link. We appreciate all you guys. So shout out to everybody on the chat.
There you go. I like knowing Rodgers saying you boys both aren't living in Philly. No, Josh is in enemy territory in Dallas. I'm in Atlanta. We love a story on y'all's fandom, origins, and friendship. Maybe later. We talked about that in the past. Maybe later on. We want to get to some more Eagle stuff here first. And then you got Tequila Lester saying, hello, Thomas and Josh. What's up? Jacob, marketing nutritionist. Jacob, what's up? I got to respond to your DM on Instagram. I need to do that. Been a little busy today. A lot of people jumping in right now. We appreciate you guys. Again, we got stuff going on tonight, both of us, so easier to get this in now versus not doing one at all. That was kind of the whole thought process here. I am very curious in terms of camp battles, the backup running back spot. We've mentioned this a little bit in the past. Will Shipley is fascinating because he's such a question mark. I watched literally 0 Clemson games last year. I just straight up honest. The only first time I watched Will Shipley stuff was after the Eagles actually drafted him. And when you put the film on, you go, okay, wait a second. This guy's really interesting, and he looks really good, and he scored a ton of touchdowns at Clemson. He's obviously a big D1 program. They had some pretty interesting competition last year in the ACC. I think he has a serious leg up. Now, listen, Kenny Gainwell, talk about experience. He's been in the Eagles system for a very long time now, but we kind of always were expecting Kenny to do this in his overall career, and it kind of was like, and then they had the playoff Kenny run, and it's kind of, is it doing this? Is it doing this? Like, it's just not,
We were hopeful for a bit, but
Exactly. And then you
did
go
fall
sign
off.
Saquon Barkley. So that's a battle I'm fascinated in, and little tease for tomorrow. I was actually able to do another interview, this time now with an Eagle player. I mean, I'll say it now. There's not enough people watching right now to give it all away, but I had Merle Reese on my show today, so I get Merle Reese talking tomorrow. And that was the one player he really mentioned as he's excited to watch is Will Shipley. So I'll throw Will Shipley's name out there as a very early camp, at least intriguing battle at RB2.
Okay, I like that, and a little tease as well for the interview. So,
There you go.
obviously knowing that it was taking place, but you gave the tease to everybody else.
Right.
Excited to hear what he had to say there. I think that you also did a show, I believe, right after or fairly soon after the draft, even talking about Will Shipley, the weapon that he is, how he could be utilized. So I'll be interested to hear Merle's comments on it as well.
Sure.
But to your point, yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't think that we have to go very far. You could look at the chat here, and it's not going to take very long. But a lot of people have very strong opinions of Kenny Gainwell, and it's just been, like to your point, positive. And you have some slip ups, and it's like, what's he doing? All this other stuff, tweeting or DMing at halftime last year.
That's right.
Like, there's just stuff that's gone on, and you kind of go, all right, that's okay if the production level has been kept up. It's still kind of like, I don't necessarily want the players to be doing that, but if you're playing at a certain level, then maybe okay. But yeah, like to this point now, you say, well, Will Shipley is that weapon. He's got a lot of versatility, and to the point of, like, again, nothing personal against Kenny Gainwell, but like Kellen Moore coming in and giving the thumbs up to draft Will Shipley says at least something. I mean, it's like, okay, that guy he envisions potentially in his offense. Now, granted, everyone knows this. Saquon Barkley is going to be on the field a lot. He's going to have the vast majority by a wide margin of snaps out there. That no one's, arguing that fact. But who's going to spell him? Who's going to be able to use maybe third down situations? You use him in other scenarios, possibly as, pass catching back, or even just as, running scheme within Kellen Moore's offense. And that's what you kind of go back and forth on. I remember Philly 500 had come on and mentioned that briefly as well. Like, hey, Kenny G, get him out of there. We've had a number of people that have mentioned the same thing. But like I say, it's as we start to get into camp, the issue, or maybe not the issue, but kind of the question that I have is like not taking everything at face value early on, because the vets are going to get more of the reps. So like if it's like, oh, Kenny Gainwell got all the second team reps, first week, not a big deal. If we're going into like the third week or fourth week and we're still doing that, then you have the writing on the wall. But it'll be curious once we get past those first couple weeks to go, oh, okay, now we're switching it up now. Does Will Shipley get more of the reps on that side? So wouldn't totally surprise me though if he were to get more of those reps.
That is a great point, and that is something that needs to be said right now, is much like with OTAs, at least the first couple of practices, maybe even the first week of practices, it's going to be more of a seniority in terms of who's playing and who's starting where. That's just how it's going to be. And now, once things start to kind of, take a little bit of shape, cornerbacks start playing well, then Isaiah Rodgers might move into the spot, or Kelee Ringo might move into spots, and goes for running back. Gainwell will be RB2. I mean, no matter how good Will Shipley is, the first 3 days of practice, he will be RB3, RB4, whatever it is. So that's an important note for people who are going to be following our coverage of training camp. A lot of people are going to want to know who's starting where right away. We'll give you that. I'm sure we will on all of our shows. Make sure you sub for that as well. But it's not necessarily going to be a full indicator. Really, the first preseason game is kind of the real first indicator for me on where they think these guys are at versus backups in terms of starting different places. So very, very good point on that. I see Samaji Sanders saying we need Justin Simmons on the roster for safety. We've gone back and forth on Justin Simmons. I'm really sick of the Justin Simmons conversation. I think there are a lot of channels that have overdone the Eagles signing Justin Simmons headline. That's obviously not true because they haven't signed him yet. We did get a Justin Simmons quote, though, Josh. He spoke to Denver 7 a couple days ago and said, basically, I want to go where I'm wanted. I want to play for a contender, which on my show I mentioned if you Google Translate that means pay me a bunch of money when you have an injury. So that's kind of where we're at on Justin Simmons.
Yes,
I don't think they're going to go for him. I fully think that they are out on the Justin Simmons train unless they have an injury at safety because they like Reed Blankenship and they love C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and that's probably good enough for them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Really quickly, going to shout out Joseph Brewster saying Kenny's been solid, dependable, but Will Shipley and Anais Smith have that electricity.
There you go.
Agree with that point. And Dylan, shout out to Dylan there. Says Josh and Thomas have the best info to follow. So appreciate that as well. Dylan, you're the man. But no, I'm with you on that. We have back and forth, like you mentioned, talk about Justin Simmons to a ridiculous point. But yes, there's only so much to talk about. So sometimes, it's, oh, hey, Justin Simmons, he spoke, he said a word. What does that mean? Let's go ahead and try to translate it for the Eagles. So another article comes out about, is he linked to Philly? We're both on the same page. A lot of people, I feel like, are the same way. If it was going to be, you're not confident in a starter, something drastic, something really bad would have to happen, in my opinion, if you're going to get a Justin Simmons. We hope everyone's healthy. We hope everyone stays safe, nothing bad, whatever. But even if you're having like I don't know, it would have to be just like, man, Reed Blankenship's having the worst camp possible, or I guess CJ Gardner-Johnson, but like it just feels crazy to even say that. But it would really, in my mind, the only way is injury related. And again, we're hoping that everyone stays healthy. That's the only way you go after Justin Simmons. Otherwise, we talked about, you get that backup, the guy who can come in, maybe a veteran, could be an Eddie Jackson if he says, sure, I'm willing to come in. I know Fangio scheme. I'll be behind Reed Blankenship, behind CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'll offer the veteran support, the mentorship, and be good to go. But because otherwise, you're just not going to pay a guy. As soon as you go, oh, here's Justin Simmons, then immediately you say, well, Reed Blankenship, you're sitting. So I just can't envision they're going at that point, especially as late as we've gotten, and you haven't gotten to move there. So we'll see.
And remember, I mean, I know they did it with C.J. Gardner-Johnson a couple years back where they brought him in the middle of training camp. That's not ideal, right? If you want someone to actually, like, if they wanted Justin Simmons to start, you would have wanted to be in there by now, at least by now, right? And I'm sure he could integrate. It's not like it's impossible, but you'd rather get him in sooner rather than later big if they actually want him to start. And I think that Reed Blankenship's on such a team-friendly deal, and he's flashed at times, especially early on in the season. This past year, you think the Tampa Bay Bucks game, the film was fantastic on him there, got the interception. They want to do everything possible to make sure that Reed Blankenship doesn't work out before they go ahead and actually, bail on him, because also he's loved in the locker room. I mean, they love the guy in the locker room. So it's really hard to get rid of somebody who we don't know what the ceiling is, but we know that it can be pretty high. They got to wait and see what's going to happen with that. So
and also too, I was going to say the shout out with your interview with Mekhi Gardner, him talking about Reed Blankenship, the impact that he makes, and that mentorship, kind of like you're alluding to as well. But it's like that says everything. We've talked about it before. It's like, okay, the media can say one thing, or we see a little glimpses and everything, but if you're getting it from the players themselves, that's the locker room vibes. That's the personality. They believe in him, and he's also being able to present that to the other guys behind him. So yeah, I think the writing's on the wall there. Really quickly, just touching on because Weedosaurus Rex said y'all were on the Simmons train for a solid 2 months. That's fair, but we haven't been on the Simmons train for 4 months. So like, there's a certain point you just got to cut it off, and we're reading the tea leaves of eventually going like, okay, look, it's just not going to happen. So I appreciate that. But anyway, Braxton here also says, I think if things go well, the Eagles could go 17-0. Suppose you could say that about a lot of things, but
it'd be nice.
Training camp first. We got to make sure these positions are solidified. Who's going to win out at various battles? Mentioning the secondary. Obviously, the safety role, we talk about, who's going to be that backup, where that's going to fall, James Bradberry, these other situations. We did touch on the cornerback a little bit, or kind of mentioning Kelee Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, it does change. And again, I know it's like every single time that we have a live show, it's going to be different. It'll be like, hey, who does it feel like today, right? Who's the flavor of the month? Who's the guy who's actually making waves? But before we get into camp, because this will be the last live Wednesday link that we have before camp starts, are you leaning one way or another? Because Slay's there, right? So Slay's the starter, he's the given. Cornerback 2, second guy, with Slay. Are you leaning one direction or another? I will ask you first because mine may be more obvious.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just be totally honest right now. Josh is especially biased, and I'm biased too. Josh and I got to hang out with Isaiah Rodgers at DeVonta Smith's celebrity softball game. And he's incredibly awesome to hang out with in person, a super nice guy. And the story overall, we talked to his mom too. I mean, the story of what he went through, taking the responsibility of the gambling, issue, which cost him a lot. I mean, sitting out an entire year at the age that he's at, coming off a really good season with the Colts in 2022 is brutal. I mean, that could be career-ending. And he stayed in shape. He put his head down, and it seems like his entire mindset has changed, so he's very easy to root for. With that being said, I'll tease my interview tomorrow, which was today, but it goes tomorrow with Merle Reese. I asked Merle, again, give me a name that you really, really like, at least so far during OTAs that you were watching, and he said, Specifically, it was Isaiah Rodgers. I felt like Isaiah Rodgers was all around the football field and the best cornerback on the field for the entirety of training camp, or entirety of OTAs and minicamp. Now, we heard from, at least on my interviews with Zach McPherson and Mekhi Gardner, they said it was back and forth between him and Ringo. I think we're both biased to Isaiah Rodgers, but I do think early on it will be Rodgers because of the seniority in terms of being in the league longer. If Ringo gets to win it, it'll be later on in the season. I think you see both play in the preseason. Slay most likely will not. I bet your starters will be Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers for that first game against Baltimore, but I lean Isaiah Rodgers there because it just feels like there's something special, and that's nothing against Kelee Ringo. I think Ringo is going to be fantastic and will find the football field a lot this year, but if you have to actually go who's cornerback 2, right now I think we both say Isaiah Rodgers.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's where there is extra bias, obviously, because we get the helmet I'm trying to give away. So once we get to 75,000 subs, but still, yes, you have the personal connection, everything there. I think that he's going to be really good. I'm excited to see within training camp and the joint practices too, because every time it's like, oh, hey, it usually comes out like you get a tweet and it's Jalen Hurts threw an interception or Kenny Pickett threw an interception. So it's okay. There's a pick first. Who was it? Then, 2 minutes later, Isaiah Rodgers was the one who made the interception. He had a pick 6 or whatever. And so I'll be curious to see those in camp. I know we're going to be watching like a hawk every single day that they're actually there live tweeting and everything on that side, but also for the joint practices. I mean, that's where if you start seeing it against other competition and then even the preseason, I know offenses are vanilla. You're not going to get everything, but it's still like, okay, this is the first competition outside of your own, team that you're going up against in 7-on-7s, 11-on-11. That's where I'll be interested, because if you keep making those plays, it seems like that's what we're going to get based on, how they've been so far this offseason. Very opportunistic defense. But yeah, I would lean towards Isaiah Rodgers. I don't know percentage wise. Just throw something out there, but I'd say I'd probably go, maybe about similar to Steen, quite honestly. Like I say 65% where he's there as a starter as of right now, and then can definitely, strengthen or hurt that based on, however they play. Fair. So
I like Hunter Gonzo here saying your bias for Rodgers is contagious. That is the statement of the year, because your interview, and Isaiah, we said this last week, Isaiah mentioned it, your interview has put him on the map. If you didn't know who Isaiah Rodgers was and you're an Eagles fan, 55,000 people watched your interview with him, and a lot watched the live stream that he came and hung out for 2.5 hours. Everybody knows who Isaiah Rodgers is, and everyone loved Isaiah Rodgers based on the interview that you did with him. So I think the bias there is extremely strong, and it's a good lesson for other Eagle players if they want to kind of get their name out. It's not a bad medium. We're just saying people seem to love it. So a little subtle promotion
there you go.
There,
I can appreciate that. I don't go full fledged on that. But hey, whatever, whoever wants to hop on, as we've said, and we've gotten several Eagles players, so it's great. We do appreciate that. Yes, there's a little bit of a little bit bias on here, but that's fine. Everybody's got a favorite.
Yeah, Eagle players. I don't know. I haven't seen the 2 winners, Shasty and the other winner of the Brandon Graham signed jersey giveaway. I don't see them in the chat, so they might not see this, but I shipped those today. So I know one is going to California, one's going to Florida. Those were shipped today. Well, they'll be there Friday and Monday. So just FYI, I posted proof that we had them on our social medias, and then we shipped them today. So they are going out.
Luffy Uchiha, I believe.
There you go.
And I was corrected like 3 or 4 times on how to say that name. I think that's the correct way. If I still got it wrong, then it's close enough. I think they know who they are. They're
both getting signed jerseys, and they are officially in the hands of USPS right now. I have tracking numbers, though, to make sure that they figure it out. So hopefully that works out just fine.
Good to go.
I did a show a couple days ago, and I'm curious your thoughts on the wide receiver 3 battle. We've talked about this before. It's probably the only other real battle that's taking place. We've mentioned the secondary pieces, especially cornerback. We've mentioned the offensive line at right guard. And then, of course, you sit there at the wide receiver 3 spot. Now, there's a linebacker battle, Zach Bond versus Nakobe Dean. Sure. Pass rush battle, defensive. There are battles everywhere, right? But there's 3 main battles, and wide receiver 3 is kind of the other one I'm keeping an eye on. And Parris Campbell is fascinating, right? Because Parris Campbell is somebody Philadelphia wanted a long time ago in free agency. They didn't get him. He has a really good 2022, and if you were to read the headline on Parris Campbell, it's like really great 2022. You read the numbers, it's like 53 catches, 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's not crazy, right? It's not like we're blowing people out of the water. And 2023 with the Giants was awful. It was really bad. It was not good at all. He played 27% of potential snaps at wide receiver on our team that has no receivers, right? Quarterback issues,
not good.
Situational issues, but overall it's not good. And so, I've said all along that I think Parris Campbell is the lock for wide receiver 3, I start to kind of wonder, is Ainias Smith the one that's going to go ahead and push him? Is it Johnny Wilson or maybe Britton Covey? Because I put this comparison up. If Campbell and Covey are exactly the same in training camp, right? Like the Eagle coaching staff views them as no different in terms of ability, in terms of skill at wide receiver. Like we think that they both look the same. You'd pick Covey because he has punt return skills, right? Plus the organizational ties. He's kind of a little fan favorite. Crash test Covey, UDFA success. Parris Campbell's not on a big contract. That to me was interesting to think about. If they're viewed the same, you'd take your rookies over Parris Campbell and you'd take Britton Covey over Parris Campbell, all things equal.
True. Yes. Hypothetically correct.
Yes,
and I know that you're not making the case of this. Some people will, I'm sure, try to go to the comments, but that is the big caveat, though.
Sure.
Because we would both agree they're not,
right?
Because like Parris Campbell's out there working out with Jalen Hurts in Florida.
Sure,
he's getting extra reps. Isaiah Rodgers even said on, I think, the live stream, he's saying like, hey, there's like extra chemistry there. Like Parris Campbell's definitely there with Jalen Hurts. We've all heard these different reports and everything as well, but it's like, sure, to your point, if it was all the same, you'd go probably, yes, you're moving with Britton Covey because it is all the same, but you don't see the similar, like Covey's not getting first team reps. Covey's not beating corners. I mean, I think it was Parris Campbell beat, I think it was Ringo maybe on a rep. I know Ringo got him on one, but I mean, he's beating some of the corners during 7-on-7, 11-on-11. He's got the speed. Sirianni really likes, what he had from Indy. So I think it's almost a given. I know that it's a question mark still because like, how much does he fit in there? But it's like, you also look back and say wide receiver 3, it'll be more significant this year. It's still a question of how much, because Olamide Zaccheaus had 10 catches last year. And if we were to go, well, who was our wide receiver 3? Right. I mean, it was kind of him. It was Quez a little bit. He was out there, but 10 catches, and he had 3 that were fantastic, 3 that were phenomenal, and game-changing receptions. But to go an entire season basically and say, well, hey, you had 10 catches, I would envision, we're looking, if Parris Campbell is the wide receiver 3 and he's the wide receiver 3 for the full season. Now, Ainias Smith could win out, like you said. It could be someone else that you insert there. But if he's there as a starter, I mean, a successful season to me is, I don't know, like 35, 40 catches. I know that's not a lot, but again, you talk about A.J. Brown, 100-plus catches. DeVonta Smith, 100-plus close catches. Dallas Goedert's got to get in there. We think the tight end will probably be a little bit more used than what we saw in the past offenses and Kellen Moore's scheme. Oh, by the way, Saquon Barkley, like how many catches is he going to get involved with? So I don't know. I kind of just go back and forth of like, how much is he utilized? Kellen Moore will try to more with wide receiver 3, but also it comes down to how confident is Jalen Hurts over the middle of the field? How confident is he to use that third option or fourth option? However you're going to look at that. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on those sides, but yeah, as of right now, and certainly for the early portions of camp, it's not going to be shocking to anyone to go, oh, Parris Campbell is the absolute lock at first team reps, because he's the vet, he's there, he's getting those reps with Jalen, is a lot more comfortable. But it'll be interesting to see if they actually make a move, because we have talked about like Texan surplus. Do you try to trade for someone if you don't really like who you have at wide receiver 3? Trade one of those corners? I don't know, possibly so.
The Eagles are really set up in terms of all these battles that if they were to have an injury with one of the starters, Becton could slide in. Ringo, Quinyon Mitchell could slide in there. Zach McPherson could slide in at cornerback. And the receiver is a little bit different because behind Parris Campbell, it's a bunch of rookies, and basically Britton Covey and John Ross is kind of a question mark there. So if you wanted to make a trade, just to confirm that if you were to have an injury to A.J. Brown or DeVonta Smith, knock on wood, please don't let that happen, then you'd have like a solid person to come in, because if you have an injury anywhere, defenses can shift that they're going to go ahead and attack you, and it changes up your offense and make things a little more interesting. So that would be interesting in terms of like a John Mechie coming in from Houston, because they have so many receivers. It's like, why not throw him a 5th-round draft pick and just solidify stuff, because solidifying stuff to me makes a ton of sense. So we'll see. Hunter Gonzo asked a very important question: which one of you is going to replace Skip Bayless on Undisputed? Did you see that? Bayless is gone in a couple of weeks, I think. Months?
I did see that. That's
very interesting.
I know you figured he was just gonna always survive. He's gonna always be there. But I guess at some point, you just got to go ahead and say, we moved on. But
we would take.
Let's be honest.
Go ahead.
Well, we might be saying. I was just if who would replace if that were to occur. Sure. It would be you. Like, let's just call it what it is. It would be you. Yeah, you got experience working for that network even. So, you
Okay,
got the
well,
connections. They'd be like, all right, it's going to be Thomas.
my my Fox Sports internship experience is what makes
It's
me
still more of the
ready to
direct
go.
experience. So,
I
for
guess.
what it's
I
worth.
guess.
But
No, the problem with those jobs, and I appreciate that. That's a nice little glowing review. I'm sure Fox is watching, so they might give me a call.
okay.
The problem with shows like that is it's not about your ability to debate or be on camera or anything like that. It's the star power of it, right? So, like, the only reason you watch Undisputed is for what Skip Bayless says. You don't watch it because, they gave you really good ideas and it's really interesting. It's like, okay, you're either a Skip fan or a Skip hater. Skip says something you like, great. Skip says something you don't like. I hate Skip, but he's just so polarizing. That's the only reason. So they don't pick random people to host that show. It's got to be a big name guy, and the pipeline is so small for stuff like that. Like think about ESPN behind the kind of top guys. What, Dan Orlovsky, Harry Douglas. I used to work with him here at 92.9. I hosted shows with Harry Douglas. He's kind of those backup host guys. That's a very small list of people they can call. Hence why Craig Carton has a morning show on Fox, which we've looked at. No one watches.
Okay, yeah,
so
that's actually a good point.
It's a really small group. It's a really small group. Jacob Marketing Nutritionist, $10 super chat. Appreciate that. I needed this live on a Wednesday. Yeah, on a hump day.
Heck yeah.
We're with you on that. We're with you on that. Especially now, it's not as bad as a desk job. To be honest with you, being a YouTuber is pretty fun. But on days like today, when there's nothing to talk about, Josh is not doing a show. I'm not doing a show. This is our only show of the day. We also are trying to get through a hump day with a live show. So, there's only so many things you can talk about at the end of July.
We're suffering. We're struggling with every way. We're almost there. We're less than a week from training camp. We've almost finally made it. But yeah, like there was enough, some just rumblings and things happening and everything else. It kind of snuck up on us, I would say. It felt like it would be a little bit longer. And there have been durations where it's been like, gosh, this is just taking forever. But yes, this last little stretch here now, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, we just got to fast forward to next week. Like, we just need to get there already. So we're with you, but appreciate the support and hanging out.
There you go. I totally agree. I saw another question here. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. The Saquon Barkley stuff. I actually was watching for my with lunch day, episode 3 of Hard Knocks, where they officially lose Saquon Barkley. Did it seem to you, and if you haven't watched the HBO show, I mean, most people have, but Joe Shine is the GM of the Giants. I don't know. Personally, I try to watch this show being very unbiased because I really enjoy Hard Knocks, and I'm like, whoever it is during training camp, I'm like totally locked in. It's the Giants, and so I should hate them, but I was trying to be like, okay, maybe these guys are cool. Does Shine, do you feel like nobody in that room likes him? Like, it's just him, and then everybody around him kind of just puts up with him because he's the GM? That's the vibe I get, is that nobody liked the guy.
Yeah,
he's trying to be fun and kind of, and they're all like, really serious and really worried, and I don't know. Yeah. It's just my take of it.
I think it's, by the way, I think it's pronounced Shane. I could be wrong, but I think it's Joe Shane.
Is it Shane?
I believe so, yes.
Too much I paid attention during the show. I watched all 3 episodes. Shane. Joe Shane.
But as far as to your point, like I just don't know, because I've kind of been both ways, the same way that you're doing as well, because, having previously been in the media, you're told like, no, be objective. Don't be biased.
Sure.
Don't do. Yeah. And so there's like a hat that I put on to be like, all right, let's just watch it as a casual observer. I don't have as much fandom. How does this come across? And then obviously, the bias approach, I'm just laughing and having a fantastic time watching them implode. But like, I don't know, because I've even seen articles and people making the case are like, no one is really going to willingly say, oh yeah, let's have this Hard Knocks again, especially an off-season version, because of how especially Shane's been painted in that light. Like, he's been made to, no offense to him, he's been kind of made look like an idiot. Like, he's said some stuff. It's been like, oh, we're not going to go do this. No team's going to go and sign this guy. Like, I especially loved, I'm paraphrasing, but his like, oh, Philly's not going to do that because Philly needs a corner. They need secondary players. There's no way that we have to worry about Saquon going to, and lo and behold, it's Saquon Barkley going to Philly. So that sense, John Mara, the owner, saying like, oh, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to have nightmares or whatever, if Saquon lands in Philly, then it does happen. You see him moping down the hall as it took place.
That was bad. Yeah, you could tell he was upset.
Yes, yeah, and it's just like again, there's only so much footage, and the hard part too is, as you know, we know and a lot of people understand, but like editing is a beating, and so you have to figure out a way to tell a story to get
Mm-hmm.
a finite amount of footage, and you can't share it all. So there's probably elements to it that you could go back and go, oh, that would actually be helpful to have some more context, but it's not super meaningful, or it's a little bit, like just kind of a boring
Right.
conversation, but there's bits and pieces that would help tell a better story. But the way that it's been chopped up and the story that has been told so far, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'm going like, man, this dude is like getting kind of the worst side of this, because people are looking and going like, does he know what he's doing? He elected to go with Daniel Jones bet over Saquon Barkley. He said they're not going to pay him. They actually did. The market has not turned out how he said or predicted
Yeah.
that it would. So I don't know. I know there's more episodes to come, and let's see where that lands. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. The end justifies the means. All this type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So if the Giants go on, and there is a world where the Giants also are benefit from this, as do the Eagles. If Saquon goes and has an all-pro season, but the Giants also have used that cap space and had the
Sure.
guys, the positions that they've made, or the selections, I guess, it could work out for both sides. But I mean, like, you got extra reason for Saquon to prove them wrong, for all the
Yeah.
Eagles players seeing that footage. Like, it just, I don't know as if the benefits outweigh the negatives for what has been shared so far, and kind of how he's being painted on that picture. So I get a kick out of it. I will say I've laughed and enjoyed it a lot. But if you're a Giants fan, I don't know how you can.
Let me see. What was this question I saw earlier? Someone was saying that Hard Knocks is akin. Oh yeah, Remo says Hard Knocks is akin to the WWE. I enjoy the WWE, but nobody's being themselves when they're on camera, because they know it's on. Yes, but it's also kind of like hidden camera. It's kind of like Impractical Jokers back in the day, where they know they're on camera, but it's still kind of filming like 24/7. And again, the poor editors got to edit that thing. Have got to be terrible. But
Mhm.
I think you do get a very genuine look at what it is like. I think it's also the funniest thing to me was basically like the Giants GM is just sitting there. He brings in Brian Dable, and he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Like, all these crazy moves are just a couple of guys sitting in a room on the phone being like, all right, well, you want to trade for Ryan Burns? Sure. Give me a 7th round. Okay, here you go. It's like all
Mhm.
these, millions of dollars, and all this stuff is changing hands. It's just a couple guys in a room just kind of doing their job.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, and
it's
and
fun.
actually something that Anthony DeBona just mentioned, Saquon, real quick, was something that we were talking about previously as well. Was like, the whole the I guess the scene where Shane is talking to Frank Gore, and they know each other from Buffalo,
Yeah.
but then the conversation is like, oh, so you guys are, what's the thoughts on Saquon? Like, your analytics say it's about 27, right? Like, Frank Gore's
Mm-hmm.
asking Shane this, and he's like, oh yeah, the analytics say they fall off. And granted, yes, it's maybe the averages, but the juxtaposition of the irony in that we were talking about is that you're literally standing there talking to Frank Gore, who played until
That's a
he was
great point.
75 and was
That's a
still
great point.
successful, and he's going, okay, all right, yeah. It just, and in his mind, you
Yeah.
don't see it, you don't hear him say it, but like, I'm just envisioning that he's going, you guys are about to pass up on Saquon Barkley because the analytics
Mm-hmm.
tell you, as Tracy Ann said, Shane read one analytics report and just ran with it to get rid of Saquon. That's
Yeah.
all it took.
Back right now. I just lost power, but I think we're back live right now. I'm trying to see if we can finish this stream. Let me see if it's live on my phone. We're trying to see if Josh and I are back right now. 1 second. Let's see. Okay. I think I'm back live. Yes. Let me know in the comment section if we're back live. I'll get Josh back on here. And we can at least finish the live stream. We're back. Wow, how about that? Yeah, we have a thunderstorm brewing in Atlanta right now. There's Josh. And there he is. Okay, it worked.
Okay.
How about that? There's a massive thunderstorm entering Atlanta right now. That's why my dog is pawing at the door. And a giant boom went, and then my power just went funk, funk. And so that's what happened. But the fact we're able, I think we're back on our same stream that we were on, right? I think
We
we're good to
are,
go.
yeah. I had it still live, and it was just like buffering for forever. But I commented to everybody and said, hey, sorry that it
about
ended,
that?
but I did not know it works like that. I assumed once the power goes out, we're done.
Okay, I'm going to post this
We're
to all
back.
say we are back, lost
Good.
power for a second. Okay, so we can at least finish. I don't know where I was. I thought with that we were done. Let it be known if it goes out again, then we're done. But we have a very big, I'm looking at my window here. It's definitely going to get worse here very soon. So we're going to wrap up a little
We
bit
almost
sooner.
ended with a bang, but we might end with a bang again
It
if we
was
get a
pretty
second
loud.
one.
I want to get Byron Neal super chat here because he super chatted right as we lost power. He says, wide receiver Campbell seems to be wide receiver 3. He's working with Hurts, followed by Covey and Ross for 4 and 5. Not in that order. The rookies could make it. Camp question marks. How many receivers do you think make it here? Because what Byron's saying obviously makes sense. There's 3, and then Covey's 4, Ross is 5. But then that leaves out Johnny Wilson and Nia Smith unless you put them on the practice squad, and they're too high of draft picks for that to make sense to me, right? That's kind of the main issue.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you don't have either of them making it, there's no way you sneak them onto the practice squad. Like a team's going to go, are you kidding me? Like we haven't even seen them yet.
Yeah.
We'll take a chance on them because you drafted them worthy of a draft pick. So
Right.
yeah, we'll absolutely see if we can get something out of them. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's 5 for sure. It could be 6. I don't think it's any more beyond that, but then that becomes the question is who do you keep on the roster? So, I mean, I'm in agreement. Obviously, it's like, okay, A.J. Brown's on there, DeVonta Smith's on there, Parris Campbell's on there. And then, you could have to me, it's like, yes, you're going to have Johnny Wilson. You're going to have Nia Smith. So there's 5.
Right.
So it really comes down to, do you have 6? And if you have 6, do you want that to be a Britton Covey, or do you feel like, hey, we do have other guys who can return the football, and then you try to sneak on or try to keep on a John Ross as another option if you want just a vet, some speed, offer something for the outside, can play in the slot some, because let's be honest, he'd be still, even though he hasn't played in an actual NFL game in a long time, he'd be a better option at receiver than Britton Covey. But if you look at from a special teams perspective, then maybe you say, no, we're going to keep him for a 6. But either way, it's like, even if you keep 6, then all of a sudden you got to go to a different positional group and say, well, let's cut it down a little bit more, and so it's really the give and take. And that's the most fun part to me, or one of the most fun parts, is just seeing that cut down of like, all right, which positions are going to get maximized, which ones you're going to have to live with a little bit less there. As of right now, I mean, I kind of think that you'll just go with 5. And unfortunately, that would leave out, Britton Covey, leave out John Ross. But yeah, there's no way that I could see you're going to leave out Nia Smith or Johnny Wilson, because they'd immediately be picked up.
Ross is kind of the big wild card there in terms of the wide receivers, because like he has a good OTA, but what does that mean? It's like OTAs or something. Although if we say Isaiah Rodgers had a good OTA and we're pumped about it, that kind of means you got to be pumped about John Ross's OTA. Merle Reese mentioned him, show dropping tomorrow. Another little subtle plug here, sort of sub for that. He mentioned John Ross looks very fast. Like he looks like he should be the speed guy. And the Eagles have always wanted to have a speed guy. You mentioned, Quez Watkins. That was like they tried so hard to make Quez Watkins work, and it just never did. So, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. Alex Yardley says, great work, fellas. Love all your content. Your consistency throughout the summer has been terrific. Wish you both all the best. Go Birds. Appreciate that. Josh and I talked a lot about what the offseason would look like, and I think both of us have been very pleased with having some sort of content for you guys during, the long wait, which is what it's been the month of July and a lot of June. So we appreciate you guys watching and keeping us making more videos, because when they get views, it makes us want to do even more.
Well, of course, absolutely. We do appreciate those guys. I did like the always entertaining people comment with the back like Hurts comeback season for the the internet speed. And we just were saying, shout out to your Wi-Fi for rebooting that
quick.
Fast. That was lightning
very fast. Yeah,
mine would have taken like 15 minutes. Let's be honest. We've had that happen before.
AT&T Fiber is like the best $80 you can spend. Not a sponsor. I wish they would. Literally the best $80 I've ever spent in my life a month, because
it'd be worth it.
Blazing fast. My YouTube videos upload in like 2 minutes and it's ready to go. So, little subtle plug.
Mine are a little bit longer.
Longer.
Yeah.
Well, you keep uploading hour-long shows. I'm sure they take forever.
Okay, yeah, it is. But even on the regular ones, like we've tried to do that before on like interviews and stuff like that, and it's like yours is immediately done, and I'm sitting there going like, well, we're at 12%. We'll get there eventually. But
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Should we talk about the linebacker? I know we talked to it's not as much of a camp battle, but it's still one of those that's kind of with Zach Bond and Fangio's comments. We did see him there getting the vast majority of first team reps, but you had a great breakdown. I can't remember. Gosh, it's been maybe a month or longer at this point. But a Kobe Dean, like the vets that are kind of in jeopardy or on the brink and where they're going to be. No, Kobe Dean is obviously like lots of pressure, and it's not even just a sense of like, hey, can he start? But like, how much of an impact can he have on this roster? Where is he going to fit in? Because you've got the Jeremiah Trotter Jr., how many reps or where will we see him? How quickly will he elevate to getting presumably, second team reps and seeing at least some what he can do? Maybe first team if they really start feeling strongly. I don't know. But it seems like you talked about Devin White recently as well. that seems like a foregone conclusion. Like, hey, there's your green dot where there's your leader for the linebackers. But that second spot, I mean, I'm really high on Zach Bond. I know that you are as well, but it's kind of, where is that? I guess, where do you see that for camp? And maybe what does it take for Zach Bond, or does someone else elevate themselves to get in that position next to Devin White?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it does feel like they've just kind of given it to Devin White. That they, getting benched last year. I did a little show on this yesterday. He did get benched last year. He was not good last year at all. And the Bucs were a playoff football team. He's a lot of talent. You want to have talent on the football field, and they went for KJ Britt instead. But they clearly think that he's going to be good enough to be LB1. So that's just right out of the way. I think they're going to try really hard to make Nakobe Dean linebacker 2. I think that they believe the talent is there, and that if you were to ask them, injuries have been his main issue, which is fair. I do think there have been times where he's been healthy and he hasn't looked as special as the linebacker that ran the great Georgia defenses, for all those years a couple of years ago. So I think they're going to try very, very hard to see if they can make him work. But at the very same time, it's like, Vic Fangio likes Zach Bond. I mean, at least from talking, and you mentioned at the very beginning of the show today, Vic Fangio is just not going to blow smoke, to someone just because he, wants to be nice to the media. He's going to talk about Zach Bond if he thinks Zach Bond's going to be really, really good. So, at that same time, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this whole battle begins. My guess is it'll be, obviously, Devin White, and they're probably just going to rotate Bond and Dean a lot during preseason, and then go for the best player after that. And if Bond can figure out how to play the linebacker spot, because he has really been an outside edge rusher basically his entire career and a special teams guy, then they'll give it to him. But can he learn fast enough? Dean has played middle linebacker, was supposed to be the middle linebacker last year. That's going to be the real discussion, is how quickly can Zach Bond, spin up here over what really is, a month of time? I mean, your final preseason game's like August 27th or something like that. I mean, we're basically have a month to learn to play linebacker in a training camp setting. You've had the offseason, but training camp setting and spinning up. And linebacker, you got to think a lot. It's like, what am I doing here? It's not pass rusher, so it's going to be very interesting.
That's true. Will he be able to get caught up to speed that quickly, or turn into the Andrew Van Ginkel that we all hope that he is or becomes? He's hanging out with TJ Edwards quite a bit. Good friends. They work out in the summers. Maybe TJ Edwards can give him a crash course on the Eagles' defense and
that'd be nice.
Be able to run that system. That would be nice if he could turn into that type of linebacker. But I don't know. You did mention, by the way, just another quick subtle plug. Preseason games. We will be live streaming for the preseason games for people that are wondering, aren't able to watch the games, or just want to, come hang out. We'll be live streaming for those. A lot of fun stuff planned. New, I don't know how to phrase it. New additions for the live stream. So as opposed to what we had last year. So it should be fun. But yes, we'll be live streaming for those. We've got, I think that is one of the questions is, coverage wise, and we're going to see, because it's not we're getting to the point, thankfully, where it's not a hypothetical. We're ready to just start seeing it of, hey, are they producing or not? But it does feel like coverage wise, Bond has definitely a leg up on Nakobe Dean, because of not only just the plays that he made in OTAs, but he's had some better, even in very limited sample size, being able to cover. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying he's phenomenal. So for people that are saying, Bond is terrible, better than Nakobe Dean in the limited sample size. But when it comes to the run stopping and the recognition there, that's the part that I don't know, because we've mentioned this before as well. Like Christian Ellis was like, yeah, hey, not too bad through minicamp. Maybe he's the guy, he could do something. And then he seemed to get through the hole pretty quickly, but couldn't make a tackle to save his life. So if you get that and we get into joint practices, or I guess not even joint practices, but the preseason games, and he's not making tackles and you're missing that, then, it's all a moot point. But I am very curious to see how does Nakobe Dean respond? He knows, he hears the doubters. Does he live up to those expectations? Does he end up getting that linebacker 2 spot, playing the will, or is he, going to lose out to Zach Bond or even someone else who comes out there? So we'll see.
It does feel like it's his last chance, though, right? If he loses out to Zach Bond, I mean, we're entering the end of the rookie contract. It's like, okay, that's kind of it. So hopefully he makes the most. And he's, again, the injury last year was brutal because he was supposed to be the guy. And we talk about reports from training camp. If you go back to our videos last year, which I feel like the quality is way worse. I was watching some of them. There's going to be a lot better training camp coverage this year from both of us, by the way. But at the same time,
we get better,
if you go back and watch those, it was like, Dean looks really good. Dean's really turning heads. And then he was like, what are you going to do? So it was definitely a bummer in terms of getting injured, and hopefully he stays healthy. That's a big thing. They all got to stay healthy. I mean, that's something that we hate talking about. It's like the boogeyman. You don't want to mention injuries, but that's really
Yeah.
step one, and what's going to be a very hard and physical training camp. I think a lot more than last year. Keep everybody healthy and get ready for that first game. I expect very few starters to actually play in a preseason game. I mean, I think Isaiah Rodgers and Ringo will. I think Reed Blankenship is not going to play. You talk about who's a starter, who's not. But behind them, a lot of chances from younger players to go ahead and, get their chance to actually play with Kenny Pickett, which would be great for wide receivers, for instance, in terms of
That's true.
a lot of reps during the preseason games, which we will, of course, cover. So should be fun.
Yes. And I've gotten a couple of these every once in a while, which is very interesting because no one's saying that like Kenny Pickett is an all-pro quarterback. But even me saying like, you've made some comments, we've made some comments on, the shows that we've put out there. But every once in a while, someone's like, who's saying that Kenny Pickett's better than Mariota? It's like, okay, accuracy-wise, and I'm not saying that he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, but just go back and watch. Like, I'm sorry, the preseason tape, he did not give receivers very many chances at all last year. I remember we're watching that, we're going like, there's an open receiver, oh, there's airmail, and like it just doesn't happen. And so, sure, Kenny Pickett's going to miss some receivers. It's going to happen. But yes, to your point, I'm in agreement of, hey, it should be a better second string reps and actually getting guys some chances to make the roster or chances to make plays. And that's at least what I'm excited about. So we'll see how it turns out. The Will Shipley effect, he'll be out there. Johnny Wilson, I'm excited to see. Definitely like, hey, just throw it up to Johnny Wilson, see what he can do. The catch radius is ridiculous. But yeah, it'll be exciting. I'm ready for football, quite honestly. I mean, just to actually see something, because it's been way too long.
Right. I totally agree. I think that's a good way to end it too, because we're right here at the top of the hour. Josh has stuff to do tonight. We're going to wrap things up, and our next Wednesday Link Live, which will be next Wednesday evening, is going to have actual training camp. Well, depending on what they do on day 2, right? But still, it'll be actually training camp week. We hope you guys tune in for that. And we'll be doing plenty more live shows and plenty of more shows next week. So lock into that. We appreciate you guys hanging out.
We'll see you. Go Birds.
Go Birds. See you guys.